So now you're armed with a literary agent. The first novel that you took an extra year to revise and went through query hell to make perfect doesn't sell, but you don't get disheartened, or you do get disheartened for a moment. And if so, how do you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I got pretty disheartened. At that point, it's like it's up to the industry, right? Like, it's my agent had done everything she could in her power, and like she's, amazing and really went and fought for me. And it just there were a couple reasons why it didn't do well, and I mean that, and also it's just a very subjective market. So yeah, it didn't sell. I was like pretty crushed actually, because whenever you get to that stage of submission, you're almost so close. You can almost feel it, right? Like the fact that editors are reading your book, like that's the final stage, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when they reject you, because you're like, oh man, like I really made it all this way. Like I I don't know if this is like an apt comparison, but like, or if you watch American Ninja Warrior, but like it's when they've made it through all the obstacles and they're at the final obstacle and then they fall, and you're like, man, like you really went through that for everything for you to fall. Like it's just, yeah. So I mean it's rough, and it's also rejection, like I'd mentioned, is like also not great as well. And so I took some time, definitely. And that was kind of the period where I wasn't sure quite what I would write next. And I wasn't sure what kind of a writer I wanted to be, and what I wanted my next work to be. And so I took some time, and then eventually the idea for Clues to the Universe came to me. So it was all very kind of serendipitous, but taking some time off definitely really helped in terms of me writing and kind of resetting.
I want to point out that I have watched multiple seasons of Ninja Warrior, and it has never come up on the show until 101 episodes in. What have I been doing? What have we been talking about? Fantastic show.
Yeah.
So you're pivoting. What makes you think that middle grade is going to be a better spot for you, at least for this first novel, rather than YA? And since it sounds like there's a story behind it, how does the idea for Clues to the Universe come to you?
Yeah. So I'd always wanted to write middle grade in a sense, but I was always really scared of writing middle grade because I idolized middle grade books when I was a kid. I mean, I was reading all those Rebecca Stead books. I was reading all those kind of books off the shelves. I loved them and revered them so much as a kid that I just didn't want to ruin middle grade. Like I wanted to write a good book too. And so it was always at the back of my mind, but I didn't realize until Clues, because with a middle grade book, I mean, as with every book, but like middle grade book, I felt like there was a pressure. Especially with contemporary, I had to be really, insightful and witty and funny and like mature, but also in a way that kind of kids could understand. Like it's really, really like intricate work to be a middle grade writer. And so I always was too scared to approach it until Clues. I was like, this Clues to the Universe is definitely a middle grade novel. And I realized that because the idea for Clues to the Universe came to me when I was thinking of this girl who was trying to process, logically the events of her father's death. And she was a scientist, I knew that, and I knew that she would have a really, really hard time processing it because grief is not at all kind of a scientific or logical or linear, thing to kind of work through. And so that was the first thing I thought of. And then the second thing I thought of was Benji, the artist who would kind of be, whose narrative would parallel Rose. And I knew that they would be both kind of missing their fathers, and the components of the plot came to me. But I knew that it could not be anything but a middle grade novel because it just dealt with kind of, the voice was middle grade. Like it had the sense of wonder that a middle grade book would have, the sense of, kids at that age. I mean, I remember being 12 and thinking kind of the world was at once like my oyster and like was super conquerable, and also the world was so like hard and weird to navigate, and things such as like getting a bad grade on a test or like facing a childhood bully seemed just as big as like, topics of like can I go to space? And so I just wanted to capture that in a middle grade book. And I think that was how the idea for Clues came to be.